Oh, hello, folks. This is Steve A. for you. You caught me reading. I'm not promoting anything. I'm not recommending anything, but I'm going to kind of comment a little bit to see if I might anticipate. There's an English language Israeli news site called Ynet News. I go just like I have my YouTube homepage. I go there every day because I'm interested in what's going on. I spent 4 years in Israel 50 years ago, including one war. I'm going to remind you that in 1966 I hitchhiked across North Africa, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt. In certain ways, that's why it attracted my eye. Disaster in Red Sea. Now this is an Israeli news site. Disaster in Red Sea. Is the Red Sea important to Israel? Well, if you go down to Eilat and get on a ship and go south, you enter the Red Sea after you leave the Gulf of Aqaba. Is there anything important happening down there that Israel would be interested in? Well, there's the Houthi boys in Yemen that are trying to sink all kinds of ships, including military ships of various countries like the United States. Is Yemen anywhere near the Egyptian coast on the Red Sea? Oh, it's about 30 miles across. So it would be strange for them to report this on Ynet News unless they're anticipating there may be a bigger story as this goes along. Disaster in Red Sea, tourist ship sinks off Egyptian coast, 17 travelers missing. The Sea Story ship. Now Sea Story is probably the name of the ship. The Sea Story ship with 45 people on board. This is a tourist boat. Including foreign tourists, was in the middle of a diving trip. So this is for upper class Egyptians? Oh yes, there are actually people in Egypt that live like you and me. Oh, or better. And the tourists. Now, the deal is that Israelis are permitted to enter Egypt as tourists. And there's kind of like a cultural ancient history reason why Israelis might occasionally be interested in going to Egypt. Right? You remember, right? 28 tourists and crew were rescued alive. Search for the rest continues. Then it says that the Egyptian media reported this on Monday. So, there it is. There's the ship. 14 crew, 45 people, multi-day diving trip when it went down. Now remember that. This is for people to snorkel and swim. And the reporter on this is the Red Sea Governorate. You know, like North Carolina, South Carolina. Well, the states in Egypt are called governorates. Yeah, they have states. And the place is off the coast of Marsa Alam. Why don't we find out where that is? Well, it looks like Google search has an idea where it is. It's called a town in Egypt. You think it's a tourist spot? Egypt has a number of tourist towns on the Mediterranean, like Mersa Matruh, which is a place where I stayed in a small motel in 1966. And recently I was looking at a map and street views of Mersa Matruh, and it's about 10 times larger or more. It's definitely geared to tourism. This looks like this is a port of call for those little pleasure sea diving. This is what it fits. This is Google search. It's presently 72 degrees there. By the way, it was 70 degrees here today. It's supposed to go below zero in 2 days. Now, what does this map tell you about the place? What do you think the terrain looks like? There's one road running north-south along the coast, and it's a beach, and there's a road junction. Another one goes to the west, a place called Edfu, never heard of it, Marsa Alam Road. Well, that sounds like a country road to me, because there used to be roads around here that would be, if you looked on the map, they would name the town in the town, and it would kind of. I can tell by the street the street layout that this is a tourist place. It looks like it's got a sizable local population. Now there's something here called Marsa Alam Divers. That's scuba diving. There's a hotel, Oasis, that's probably closer to, oh, look at that building. Yeah, the typical Egyptian, this is where they go for vacation. Yeah, that's right. Have you been to Egypt? Even in 1966 to now, do you think? Okay. Now, I'm curious. Let's see if there's a street view. No, there's no street view. Now, why am I doing this? Look at over here. Look at over here. Look at this. This is desert. There's another place down here, but it doesn't look like it's a town. Let's go back a little bit more. The scale right now is 2 miles to the inch. There's a place out here in the middle of Sinai. Okay, so I lied. This is about 60 miles across, 80 miles across. Where are the Houthis? There's Medina. What is Medina known as? Birthplace of Muhammad. So this place is opposite Saudi Arabia, which means it's north of, now there's Jeddah, that's still Saudi Arabia. Here's the border with Sudan on the west side. There's the Aswan Dam. There's Luxor. That's ancient Egypt, Upper Egypt. I'm just orienting you. Okay? And here's Yemen down here. So, could it have anything to do with the Houthis coming up and playing games further up to harass Egypt or Saudi Arabia? Who knows? I'm trying to think of why they would have that on the Israeli news. I don't see that it will pan out to be that, but now I want to give you a little tourism. Now remember, what I'm going to show you here is not very much different than the way it looked over here, up here on Libya. See, do you see where my cursor is? Up here on Libya. So let's see if we can find that place again. Okay, how many places are there along here? There's that one, that one. Wait a minute. It looks like a tourist town. That looks like a tourist town. That looks like a tourist town. It's an actual city. But there's nothing there. It's big desert and mountains. So they must be 100% reliant on tourism. Wadi Gamo. Oh, you mean they have a national reserve where you can't go in there and mine and cut and do anything like that? Bernice Troglodytica. Do you mean they found, maybe they found, wait a minute, view details. There probably are fossils there from dinosaurs. That's a guess. Let's let our minds stray. See, someday you may want to fly there and do it. Wikipedia is an ancient seaport of Egypt. This fits right in. Is an ancient seaport of Egypt on the western shore of the Red Sea. It's situated it's way south of Suez City. It's east of Aswan in Upper Egypt. Remember, I pointed out Upper Egypt. And it was founded in 275 BCE by Ptolemy II Philadelphus. Why would an Egyptian have a Greek-sounding name? Why would an Egyptian have a Egyptian pharaoh have a Greek-sounding name? Ptolemy Philadelphus, who named it after his mother, Berenice. Does that sound like Arabic to you? Or whatever they spoke in Egypt among the grunts? Did you know that Cleopatra was a Greek? But why would the Egyptians have a port there? Now, keep in mind it's a tourist site right now. We're going to go back to that other place. But keep in mind what I just said. Ancient Egyptian port. What's going on that there would be a port there? Because things about that area haven't changed in 3,000 years. Okay, so let's go back to our favorite place right here. You can see all the wadis. Can you see the wadis that run from the mountains? When there's a sudden flash rain, it all runs off and goes down the channels, and there's a torrent going right down to the sea. It's called a wadi. Now watch. Why don't we go down the coast? Because that's obviously a sea town. And there's a beach. There's somebody parked. There's the road. That road probably looks pretty much the way the asphalted over Roman road looked in 1966 across northern Libya. The Italians in the 30s, when they took over Libya by invasion, one of the things they did is they asphalted over the Roman road so their trucks could move stuff back and forth. And that's about what you're seeing there. And there's somebody parked there. And why would they be parked there? Because they're swimming. And there's somebody on the beach. This might be a little shack where somebody sells sweets, because people come down here to fish and swim. Now keep in mind where it is. So they're in the touristy town, and they're tired of the crowded beach, so they get in their car, because they drove down there from Suez City, and they're parked right there on the rough siding. And you can see what the beach looks like. Now let me do something. You notice how the color changes abruptly along here, but it's a variable width? So this is the main road. It's got a number on it. And this is some kind of track or dirt road that car is on. Let's continue down the coast. There's some kind of camp there where you can rent those, get away. Look at it, they got pictures. The Tondoba Eco Lodge and Deep South Diving. Check availability. You can make $33 a night. What do you think? Did you expect this? When we were crossing North Africa, across Libya, were there places like this? No. But then tourism wasn't a big deal yet. And why? What stimulated the tourism on a grand scale? The answer is the end of the Second World War, pent-up money, what they learned about building long-range airplanes in the war, and the beginning of international travel by airline as opposed to it taking 10 days to 2 weeks by ship. The airplanes could fly into more places than there are ports. People had money after the war, pent up from the savings they couldn't spend during the war, and they wanted to travel. And that was what kick-started it. But I'm talking about 1950. In 1966, I flew on a DC-10, I think it was, Air Iceland, from New York to Luxembourg, with a stop in Gander to refuel, and another stop in Keflavik, Iceland, to refuel. But we went on Siamo. Posto di Controllo Polizia. Do you notice that it's in Italian? It's in that government. It says it's on what road it's on, but there's a police station there. When we crossed Libya in 1966, west of El Agila, where then it was torn down by Gaddafi, the big Arc of Mussolini was, you know, the Arc de Triomphe, like that the Romans built everywhere. Mussolini built one to himself when they conquered Libya. And the road, technically, it went over the Roman road, but we had to go around it, and there was one of these things right there, a wooden shack. They had machine guns. They had big 55-gallon drums on the narrow road path. We had to stop and show our passports and get registered and say what our name was and what our address was and what our father's name was. Yeah, to know who you are, they had to give your name and say what your father's name was. I'm just telling you what the world's like. It's something like that. They want to know who's on the road. True Beach Resort, Dream Lagoon and Aqua Park Resort, Gamma Resort. Look at all these resorts. Would you have expected that? Karam Park. Now, take a look at this. Do you understand what you're seeing? Now, it's a park. Let's get rid of this. Here's the road. You see some brush. They're calling it a park. Why would anybody stop here? Why would this be of interest? Take a look at what the satellite's showing us. That boat is stranded. How do I know? That boat is stranded. How do I know? Do you see the breakers here? Do you see the breakers right there? Do you see the breakers right here? Do you see how the water color changes? Over time, erosion from the nearby mountains, which are up that way, with the winter storms that occasionally dump tremendous amount of rain and it floods down, but never only in the winter. This brown color is above water, and this area here is the sandy beach, anywhere from 2 inches to maybe as much as 6 feet. And the darker blue is the sudden drop-off. And the reason why this boat is right there is because it's stranded on a sandbar. That's a sandbar just under the water. That's why the waves are breaking on this area, because the currents are not just at the surface, but actually under the surface, and they hit land. And you get a wave. And that guy's stranded. And this is a nice place where you can get out and you can walk around in the water without just suddenly dropping in 20 feet. And this place would almost be suitable for a port. Now, one of the things that Colonel Blanc told us as we were crossing Libya is that the thing about the Libyan coast, which runs for about 1,600 miles, is that there are only 3 or 4 places suitable where larger ships could actually get near to shore and you could have a dock and unloading heavy cargo. And other than that, you're out of luck. They'd have to use dhows, small boats, to get stuff to a ship that was anchored offshore. Otherwise, it would get stuck on the shelf, shallow shelf, just like I'm describing here. Now, I'm going to point out one more thing. You notice that the name here has the word RAS. That's Arabic for head. Rosh in Hebrew. It's an ancient Semitic root. Ras, pronounced that way, means head. And it usually means a seacoast point. And here's another one. The Wadi El Gamo Dolphin House. This is all tourism. This is a Ross. Do you understand? It looks like a beak. Do you notice the shore? Do you see the colors? So did they build this road did they see there's another one? That's why there's a name for these places. The other places are not such great touristy things, but there's probably fishing in there. Does that look like a Ross to you? A head? That's what it's named, and it's another beach. And look at the feature of the beach. Why isn't the beach over here? Why isn't the beach over here? Why is the beach here? It's for the reason I explained, because you can get in water, you can walk out for a couple hundred yards. But if you walk too far, what happens to you? In a way, it's really beautiful. Now we're getting down to something because there's some kind of structure here. There's a building there, and there's something like a wall. Is that a property owner? Abu Ghosh. Now, pay attention. Abu Ghosn School. Looks like a mosque. Abu Ghosn homepage. This is the first time I'm looking. I just had a feeling. Abu Ghosn homepage. Our projects get the details about us. Abu Ghosn Community Development Association misses to provide development services. Is it safe to go there? Biodiversity conservation and natural resources management. You can get honey from there. They have language courses. Beit Halabavada. But what country is it in? Have we got the right place? Now the reason why it says Arabic up there, the reason why I went to this and highlighted Abu Ghosn is that in the back of my head, remember I've been doing this a long time, in the back of my head, I remember this from 15, 20 years ago. This organization. This is not their only place where I'm showing you. I remember them from a long time ago, the name. Yes, it's Arabic. But when I looked at that, I'm going, I know that name, I know that name, I know that name. This is not the first time I have visited Abu Ghosn, but the last time was decades ago. So they built this out in the middle of nowhere, and there's a radio tower here. And there are street lights. You see the street lights? Where do they get the electricity? There's a mosque. That's not the same as the school, but you can, is it the same building? Oh, that's interesting. Is it the same building? Now, let's take a look at this place. I looked at it before, and I thought there was something strange about it. Now, here's a building, and there's pavement. Now, what is this? What are these? They got paved streets around them. Somebody set it up. What is it? Are these little huts where people live in it? And it follows a pattern. This is a hospital. Why would they have a hospital down here? That's a building which looks different than those squares. There's the Abu Ghosn school, but we're seeing the aerial view. We're seeing something in the middle. We're seeing a long building here and a small building here and some little building, and there's something around it like a fence. Oh, there it is. You can see it right there. See it over here? That's what it is. Why would you build that around the school? Because originally that building was needed to be defended. That building needed to be defended from thieves. There's an old Middle East saying, in the night there's only Balayla yesh ruach echad aval ganav elef. I said it in Hebrew. In the night there's only one ghost, but 1,000 thieves. You remember about that ancient Ptolemy port? This is the Abu Goshen port. Do you see the cranes? Do you see the dock? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 cranes. And we see rough stones along here. What else do we see? We see that there was a neck of something. Either there was probably a jetty. They were able to pave it. It's stable. Any ship that tries to come here will get stuck. Any boat that comes here will get stuck. I can prove it. And this is the port to support that town and other places nearby. Now watch. You see the fence and the gate? They know that if you try to go around here, you'll get stuck. You can't go with a car, can't go with a truck. So there's a gate. It's open at this moment. There's somebody that checks your, all right, and it goes into the town. So when they unload stuff, they have to have a secure place to store all the boxes and crates, which is what I asked you what those paved square areas were. So it's a town, it has a school, it has a mosque. Now, there's a little dock here, you can see the boat. What do these do? They keep the boats from drifting up there and getting stuck. It's not meant to keep boats that are stupid enough to go all the way over here and get stuck, but if somebody comes in and is doing business along here, they don't want them to be drifted by a wave coming in and get stuck. So they got a barrier there. Got it? I'm teaching about infrastructure. Have I ever seen that before? Only in my travels. So what have they got this down here for? Didn't you see all the tourist hotels and stuff like that? Where do you go to the grocery store? Do you drive all the way back up to Port Said? Or Suez City, which is at the southern end of the Suez Canal? That's a long way. It's not practical. Does that suggest that there's more tourist stuff going down here? I've never looked at this before. What's here? It's named. It's got a big name. Mohammed Cole. This is in Sudan. This is in Sudan. See the fences around the building? See the little port and dock area? There's the government office. There's the school. Workers and families are there in order to take care of the port and the border control, because there's a road. Trucks and individuals are going across the border. Sudan is not Egypt. You better have a passport and a visa. You better explain what you're doing here. So this is in the middle of nowhere, and this is the Sudanese border control. And there's another storage area. And there's the state police. You see how it's the same pattern, but do you see it's the same pattern? It's probably built by the same people. You see it? Oh, do you think those are houses, or do you think those are... No, why would you have a fence around it with gates? Because I can see the gates. Because anything that was imported there is expensive. Now, let's look at these buildings. See, what are these? There's somebody's shed, and then there's whatever this is. Do you see the fence around it? Why do you have to be like that if you're out in the middle of nowhere? Why do you have to be like that out in the middle of nowhere? There's a gas station. Oh, marina. It's a marina. Whether you get gas there. I bet you get gas there. How many gas stations were there crossing North Africa at Libya at that time? Yeah, for that big long stretch. How many gas stations do you think there were? There were gas stations in Tripoli. There was gas stations in Benghazi. How many gas stations in between? In 1,000 miles. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I was there. Oh, you mean Land Rovers that have an extra gas tank under the seats? Besides the one that's in the back? Oh, I went way down into Sudan. You see the border there? Now look at this. Do you see this right here? What's this? That's a rift. That's a rift. Now I'm going to take you on a little tour and we'll close it up. Do you see the rift? Do you see the rift right there? You kind of lose track of it, right? How far south does the rift go? It terminates in Ethiopia. I'm teaching you about the Red Sea. The rift terminates down here. Now, it says Eritrea, but Eritrea used to be a part of Ethiopia in 1966. It's a breakaway, and there's another breakaway where there's a war going on now. But we aren't talking about that. This thing here is the rift. And you see how it goes up to here, and then it goes up this one. The rift actually goes up here, and then it goes up here. Do you see where I'm going? Do you see my cursor? What's right here? Is that called the Dead Sea? How many feet below sea level is the rift where the Dead Sea is? And the rift keeps going, and it's called the Jordan River. And then there's the Kinneret, Sea of Galilee, and the rift originates at the foot of Mount Hermon. Can you tell I've been there? Yeah, that's right. The Jezreel Valley is low, but you have the rift that forms the bed of the Jordan River, which runs all the way down to the Dead Sea, but there's no outlet beyond the Dead Sea, and the actual geologic rift continues down, and that's this finger of the, and that's the Gulf of Aqaba. Can you see the rift there? Can you see it right there? And it keeps on going, and it seems, and there's the rift, just like a railroad track, and it kind of breaks up a bit, but then it picks up again and goes all the way down, all the way down. Yeah, that's right, it's jagged. Goes all the way down, all the way down, all the way down to Ethiopia. Okay. So this all started with this tourist boat. Did you suspect there was anything like that on the east coast of Egypt and Sudan on the Red Sea? And if you want to know where to go on a vacation sometime, now you know it would be fun, wouldn't it? Just have a lot of this. And now you know why there's small ports there. And you know what? Oh, there's one more thing I didn't explain. Why would there have been a port there, Egyptian port there, 3,000 years ago? Why would there have been a port there? Remember that one we found that said it was an Egyptian port 3,000 years ago? Why would they have a port there? just like they have them now. If Egypt was rich and importing luxuries and necessities from Africa, it could follow either the Nile River, which is inland, or it could be that there are things coming from further down, like Ethiopia, that you would need a sea route to get it to Upper and Lower Egypt. And you have to have ports every now and then because ships can only go so far and they run out of food and fuel and whatever it is they're using. That these hinterlands were resource things, and you would build ports along there to feed the rich Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Yeah. Oh, I was talking about, what was my mind strays, you'll pardon me, I'm just reliving it. There's Egypt. What was the eastern border of ancient Egypt? When people like the Assyrians and all those tried to come in and invade, even when Alexander the Greek came and conquered them. What was the traditional eastern border of Egypt on the Mediterranean? I can tell you what the traditional one was on the west. It's easy. It's at El Saloum, right here. It's at El Saloum. As the map expands, there's Saloum. Why do I know that was the traditional eastern boundary? All right, they don't have any pictures. How do I know that was the traditional eastern boundary? It's easy. Remember I talked about the rift? Well, right along here, right along that border, is a big sudden uprise of like 500 feet. And you had to, they managed to make a road come down the face of it. I'm remembering 1966. That you're up on a plateau in Libya. There's only one road. There's only one road here because that, from ancient times, that was the only place where you could actually get down from the plateau that overlooked Western Egypt from Libya. And it runs down into the desert. So that was the natural western border of Egypt, defensible at El Saloum. We bribed them at El Saloum not to look in the truck. So let's go over here. This is the last thing. I'm giving you a tourism. There's Mersima Truth. There's Alexandria, an important port since ancient times. You notice how this is Rasheed, R-A-S-H-E-E-D. They make it one word. It was important. Okay, now, here's the Gaza Strip. That's where all the Philistines are. That's where the war is right now. Was that the eastern border? Was that the eastern border of Egypt in ancient times? No. It was right here. Wadi al-Arish. Do you notice there's only one road going north to get in there? And do you notice the road splits? And there are only small minor roads. It's called Wadi al-Arish. And the reason is that from north to south, that was the only passable way. You see this nice port area? It's a nice big city. What's this big city doing out in the middle of the desert? What's that big city doing out in the desert? You see how the road goes straight there? There's the El Arish International Airport. And look away do you see the way the texture changes versus over? This was the ancient eastern border of Egypt. Just a stray thought. I'm giving you a tourism. You got to understand how beautiful all of this is. Al Gamel Pond. What does Gamel mean? It means camel. You notice there's only one road here? Why is there only one road? And here's Port Said, and why is Port Said important? Suez Canal. Have I ever been to Port Said? Yes, I stayed at the youth hostel. Actually, the Egyptian students I met there, it was a memorable event, but I won't talk about it now. Well, I will tell you one thing. There was a group of students who were getting a tour of Egypt to see what it was like, and they were matriculating to start the university, I think Cairo University. And the government required that they do this trip around Egypt before they are permitted to become freshmen at the university. And the point was, by Abdel Gamal Nasser, the president, so that they wouldn't have a narrow village level view of what Egypt is, that they would get the bigger picture, kind of like what I've been giving you. And we were in the dormitories, like a hostel. It was a hostel. And they were going to move on to the next stop the next day. They had toured Port Said and seen the northern end of the Suez Canal. And some of them kind of spoke English, and they would translate to the rest of them. It was about 20 people. And they were asking me political questions, because this is 1966. Remember, the war started in 67. Things were, Egypt had just actually nationalized the Ford Motor truck plants and just seized them outright and kicked the Ford Motor Company right out of Egypt. And so there was a lot of political turmoil, and these guys were actually, when they found out I was an American, they started asking me questions about America and what am I doing here, and then it moved on to what were basically political questions. And what did I think about American support for Israel and stuff like that. And I did my best to dodge answering the questions. And then afterwards, I had a chance to talk with them. I know the Hebrew word, madrich, the older man who was guiding the group that was in fact a government official from the university. He was the one leading the tour to the various places. And when I got him alone afterwards, I said it was really nice meeting the students. But some of the questions they asked me were very difficult, and I didn't feel as though, and I apologized, I didn't feel as though I really could answer, you know. And he said to me, I remember I was looking him in the eye, and I remember that he looked up and he said, yes, that's true. You never know who you're talking to. That's what he said. Yes, he smiled, he looked up, and he said, yes, that's true. You never know who you're talking to. What do you think he told me? What do you think he told me? He told me that the purpose of that tour around Egypt was not only to familiarize the students with the different aspects of Egypt itself and its people and towns and villages, but also to sort out the ones they were going to arrest. Now I'm off the track. When I was living in Philadelphia, prior to the trip in 1966, one of my friends who was attending the Philadelphia Textile College, which was near where I lived in Philadelphia in West Germantown. School's a little further in East Falls, but You can look up Philadelphia Textile College. It's not called that now, but there's, okay. One of the people I knew was an Iraqi who was actually in exile. His family had been in the government before the overthrow. And he told me one day a story about his journey to the United States to go to Philadelphia Textile. And the first stop on the airplane trip was in Cairo, Egypt. And he landed at the airport and he got off to see, he wanted to make multiple hops before he got to Philadelphia. The airlines gave you tickets like that so you could see a little bit along the way. So he gets off the airplane and he does the customs and he goes out. Oh, there's a taxi. He gets into the taxi. And while they're driving, I needed to go to a hotel. And the guy's, oh, I got one I can take you to. And they're driving into the city of Cairo from the airport. And the driver is asking him all kinds of questions. He's curious about him. He's coming from Iraq. And what does he think of Nasser? What does he think of this? And my friend, who was very politically oriented, was answering all the questions frankly, according to him. And he gets back to the hotel, and it's still early in the day. He checks in, he's got his room, he puts his bag in the room. He comes back out, he gets another ride out to Giza to go to the pyramids. So he's out there for maybe an hour or so. Now he's been in Egypt maybe as much as 2 hours. He's back at the hotel, and at the front desk, there's an urgent note from the Iraqi embassy. Call me right now. So he goes to the phone booth and he calls the number. And the guy says, you got a big mouth. I'm quoting what my Iraqi friend told me. You got a big mouth. One of my friends in one of the agencies, Nasser had 5 spy agencies, 5 CIAs and FBIs, 5, both to spy on people and on each other. One of my friends in one of the agencies gave me a courtesy call about you. You got a big mouth there in that taxi. Get your bag, get out to the airport, and take the first plane out of Egypt as fast as you can, because they're coming to arrest you. Click! And he hung up on him. And my friend, who was fairly savvy, got right back to the room, closed his bag that was on the bed, went down, paid his bill, got a taxi, and he got a plane to Cyprus. It was like leaving in 10 minutes. That was it didn't matter to where, just as long as you get out of the country, before they arrested him for talking to the taxi driver, saying things that he shouldn't have said, giving honest opinions. So I'm in Egypt, I'm in Port Said, I'm in the hostel, there's a group touring around, they're pre-university, and I said to the guy, some of the questions they asked me, I didn't feel as though I could really say what I think, so, I apologized, and he blinked and he looked up and he said, yes, you never know who you're talking to. And if you go down to there's all this tourism down in the middle of nowhere, because the swimming and the snorkeling and the scuba diving and the corals and the turtles and all that stuff is just so beautiful, if you've got the money. Steve A. before you, just reminiscing a little bit, I guess, saying see you in 73.